Welcome to American Dreams, Keys to Success, with your host, Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. We have with us today Cam Carlson. He is the president of Carlson Hammond, a consulting firm specializing in succession planning and exit strategies. Cam, welcome to today's show.
Thank you, Alan. It's good to be here.
So, give me some background, Cam. How did you get to where you are today?
I started out immediately after the coming out of the service in the early 70s in the financial service business. And I ran into a very interesting gentleman who I think has actually been on your radio program before. And I spent the better part of the decade of the 80s running around the country doing employee stock ownership plans, putting them in, taking them out, fixing them, whatever the case may be. Common thread in all of those situations is that owners of businesses were trying to develop an exit strategy or a succession plan. In about 1990, I kind of looked at what we had done for almost a decade and realized that many times we were trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And ESOPs didn't work for everybody. But nevertheless, all of these folks had the same concern. How do I make a transition out of my business? How do I perpetuate my business? How do I preserve the value that I've created over a lifetime? And that's what I've been doing ever since that time.
So now you're an attorney.
I am. I am an attorney. I'm a member of the bar in California. I don't hold myself out as practicing law. I use this background really as a tool, I think, to help clients.
So Cam, what exactly is a succession plan?
Probably best described, Alan, from the standpoint that it's a path or a plan to set a course. Like most of us going through life's journey, it's best to have a course laid out. We don't have in business the value of modern electrical GPS planning.
Yep.
So it's hard to get on a course. It's hard to stay on a course. And a succession plan or an exit plan is really the development of that written plan that lays out that course.
You know, it's interesting. I think most of us, we get involved in businesses and we're focused on growing the business, but we never think about how do you get out of the business. And eventually everything comes to an end.
Correct.
So, Cam, why do you feel it's important to have a good succession plan?
I think there's a couple reasons, Alan. First of all, kind of repeating myself here to a certain extent, a good succession plan is going to help people preserve the value and the lifestyle they've spent a lifetime creating in their business or through their business. I think having a good succession plan in place also changes the tone in the business as well. Good key management people and employees understand when there's a succession plan in place, when the owners have gone through the thought process of developing exit strategy. And I think it makes all the employees and executives in the company feel far more comfortable and confident. They have a sense of being able to plan their own lives. And I think that, at the end of the day, adds a tremendous amount of value to a business.
You know, I think it is important. We talk about lifestyle, and nobody wishes that they spent more time at the office on their deathbed. We've heard that time and time again. And I think when we think about life, we think about, how do we utilize our time? How do we put things together? And I like the point there with the succession plan. And really, it's not about stopping. It's about transitioning into something else. And I like the way that you put that, your path. What goals do you have? How do you set it up? And so you help people basically set a pathway for their life and help them transition from one phase to another.
Correct.
Very good. Well, Cam, we're coming up against the break. I'd like to have you on for the next segment, talk more about succession planning and how you can add value to your life and the things that you do.
Great.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Protecting your family's health and welfare is a sacred trust. At Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company, we know that sound financial planning will protect them now and in the future. We're certified public accountants with tax services for the highly successful. For your business and your family, call GrowCo.
Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company will help you manage your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important in life.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Cam Carlson. He's a principal with Carlson Hammond, a consulting and financial service practice specializing in the development of business succession and exit strategies for owners of private businesses. Cam, before the break, we're outlining what exactly a succession plan is, and I like the way you lay this out. That it's helping business owners understand where their path is. And sometimes people will say, I'm going to go start a business and I'm going to make lots of money. And nothing grows to the sky. And so people will start in this process and they're growing and they're spending all sorts of time only to find out that, they may not be happy because, as they're setting out on this pathway, it's not really what they expected. So as you go through the process of succession plan, typically when does a person come to you to say, Cam, I need a succession plan? How does this come about?
Well, it's interesting, Alan. I don't want to sound self-serving, but most of them come too late.
Which is good to know.
And perhaps later on we'll get into some of the reasons why, particularly now at this juncture in our society. But people come to us when I say there's kind of a convergence of thought. They wake up one morning and say, I'd rather be doing something else, and perhaps I have enough money so that I can afford to do something else. So all of a sudden, they start thinking about redeploying what I call their time, talent, and treasure, and moving on to the next phase in their life. Whatever that may be. It may be fulfilling a charitable desire with a church or a university, mentoring kids, fly fishing, anything that may strike their fancy. But up until that point in time, they've kind of been chained to the oars of the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I think for every one of us, we think to ourselves, do I really want to be doing what I'm doing today? And if the answer is no, then change, right? Just stop what you're doing and go do what you want to do. There's nothing to say you can't go fishing today. Now, there's consequences, but there's nothing stopping you from your decision there. So,
that's right.
Process of putting a plan together, how long does this take?
In the perfect world, probably 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
In reality, probably a little bit longer than that. Mainly because there's a lot of thinking, as you can imagine, that goes on with the owner or owners of a business in terms of this next step and the transition.
Now let me take you through steps. Okay.
Sure.
So can you walk me through a process of what it takes to create a succession plan?
Sure. I break it down into six steps,
okay,
fundamentally. The first two are really focused on what I would call goal setting, reaffirmation of goals and objectives, a financial gap analysis. What do I have, what do I want, and what's the gap? Ultimately, just from a pure financial standpoint, coming to the realization or asking the question, can I afford to sell my business? Part and parcel of that is to get a realistic idea of what your business is worth. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go out and get an expensive formal valuation, but you need to have a little bit of a heart-to-heart with your
Are people realistic what they think it's worth versus the true value?
In large measure, no.
And how do you get that reconciled?
I think what they need to do is spend some time with their accounting professional, who has a good idea of the financial history of the company. Most of whom who have got some good background in the fundamentals of establishing business value, and just discuss it and get realistic.
Okay, so Cam, we're coming up on the break. I got to hold you over and got to
Sure.
get more information about this process of succession planning. We're visiting with Cam Carlson today on the process of succession planning. We'll be right back after these messages.
Nothing's more important than spending time with your family. At Greenstone Rogoff Olsen Company, we're trusted advisors to the highly successful. Our goal is to help you find the right strategy to protect your wealth for yourself and those you love. Kids, why do I feel like I've just had an audit? As trusted advisors to the highly successful, we'll make sure that you don't lose your shirt.
Roco helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. We're visiting here today with Cam Carlson, and the topic is succession planning. And before the break, we were on the topic, Cam, of reconciling differences between what a person feels their business is worth versus actually the true value of where it's at. And I think, as a CPA, I see a lot of people come in and they're like, okay, I want to sell my business, but it's hard to move it forward because of the fact that they can never admit the reality. Their business is not worth what they think it is. Now, this is where you come in.
I think we can help
How do you help people with that?
Well, first of all, working with you, CPA, for example, I think we need to generally have a serious discussion about how businesses are valued almost from a technical standpoint, from a mathematical standpoint, and then what the perceptions are in the marketplace. So if one of your clients, Alan, asks or says to you, gee, I'd like to sell my business, well, you can enter into the discussion, to whom do you think we can sell it, or what are the differences in buyers? And there's going to be a difference between a financial buyer who's very analytical and financially oriented in terms of their view of the business, and perhaps a strategic buyer who looks at this business and says, gosh, you have a product or a service that fills a niche that's a gap in our product or service offering, and therefore you're very valuable to us. So there's an enhancement of value perhaps in that situation. But I don't think most business owners have really kind of gone through that analysis in their head. Many times they are playing golf with a friend whose friend just sold a business for $20 million. And they think, well, gosh, my business is just like his or hers, so my business must be worth $20 million. Only to find out through some pretty rudimentary financial analysis that the business is only worth $10 million. So, as you said, it becomes somewhat psychologically demotivating at that point in time to consider moving on.
We always hear these stories about people selling for astronomical numbers. I golfed with a friend who sold his business for $1.8 billion. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the reality is that's far and few between the people that ever get there.
Right.
The reality is I think when people sell their businesses, isn't it mostly that they strike a deal, the new people come in with their systems and processes, and the old owner is stuck with learning, this new culture. I mean, typically, what do you advise these guys? You advise them to get out as quick as they can, or when we're talking about succession, what is the typical?
Well, I think the reality of the
like?
situation is that if in most transactions and you've probably seen this, if somebody has sold their business and there's a holdback of cash and an earnout over a period of time, very few selling business owners make it to the end of that earnout period.
Really? And why is that? I shouldn't sound surprised, but let's sound surprised.
Well,
they keep striking these deals that
right.
they want to be to the end, but rarely do they make it. And why would you say that is?
Well, they've spent a lifetime being in control.
Yeah.
Now they're no longer in control. They're subject to other people's rules, and that's very aggravating, very frustrating. They may have been in a situation where they had control over the company checkbook, and now they're receiving a salary and maybe some allowances, and it's very frustrating when they can't go in and write themselves a little additional check.
So Cam, preemptive strike. You're the seller.
Right.
What do you tell the seller to do? Knowing that once this deal is struck and they're in there, it's going to be a different ball game.
Well, I think as a preemptive strike, I try to warn them of that. I try to get them to as realistically as they can. And again,
how much cash would you have them take up front?
Well, I'd have them take all the cash they can.
All the cash.
And remember that I'm not an investment banker or a mid-market investment banker. I'm not necessarily the one that should probably be commenting on the structure of a deal, other than what I've seen. Mm-hmm. But I would encourage them to take all of the cash that they can as early as they can and plan on getting out. Because if what motivated them to sell in the first place was to redeploy this time, talent, and treasure elsewhere, they're going to feel very frustrated having to commit themselves to this business to hope they can extract some earnout and then all this work inuring to the benefit of a new owner.
And so effectively what you're guiding a person towards is a lifestyle. Saying, succession planning, we're transitioning from one lifestyle into another.
Right.
You know, you're cashing out, but with the cash that you get, you'll then be able to do the other things that you want to.
Right.
So oftentimes we get stuck in failing to remember we're all on a conveyor belt until some significant life event happens.
Right.
And then when that event happens, we realize everything that we thought was important is no longer important. And so I really like what you're doing with this succession plan, because you're reminding people, what do you want to do with your life? So you built a big successful business. Let's cash in, but not only cash in our succession plan, let's transition to other goals.
Correct. And I think there's a number of things too, Alan, that we tend to emphasize. You asked about the process of this plan and how do we maximize value. There are a number of things that we consider to be value drivers that we want to discuss with a business owner who's contemplating an exit strategy. And I think there are things that if an owner is willing to give themselves a couple years, they can employ some of these value drivers and really enhance the value of their business. But it takes some time currently to sit down and have a sincere talk with yourself, if you will, about the condition of your business. And what are some of the things that drive value? One of the things that we hear most often, and I have a lot of stories about, frankly, are private companies that have built a good management team. The owners, in our experience, who seem to get the best value for their businesses are the owners that have built a business that pretty much runs itself. They have a lot of bench strength. They have good people. They have all the right people sitting in the right seats on the bus, all going in the same direction together, and that's critical. And they've taken the time to evaluate their business processes as well. They produce good financials. They understand cash flow. They understand gross and operating margins and how to maintain them or improve them. Something as simple as having an attractive office space is very important. So when that potential buyer walks in, I mean, what's the first impression?
Yeah.
First impression is, gosh, here's a successful business, and the people that own this business really care about it because it looks good.
So, Cam, we're really running up against the break here, but a person wants to contact you. How do they do that?
They can contact us by phone, obviously, at area code 415-256-8960.
256-8960. 415.
They can come visit our website at www.carlsonhammond.net.
Very good.
And that's how we can be reached.
Well, Cam, thanks for joining today's show.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to American Dreams with Alan Olsen on AM 1220 KDOW.